Hey everyone, it's Sarah with A Wild Rumpus, and I wanted to talk to you today about the fears that come when first starting your bullet journal. This month I've been talking to people about bullet journaling a lot. One thing I've really noticed when talking to people who don't bullet journal but are intrigued by bullet journaling is they have this idea that they can't do this, that bullet journaling is too much for them, that they're not artistic enough or organized enough or all of this different stuff. The first reaction always seems to be, that's not something I can do. And I understand that because I did that too. When Jill introduced me to bullet journaling in 2014, I was like, you do you, boo, and no thanks. I'm not interested. I want a prescribed way of doing things. I want to know what's going to come next on every single page. Even though I hated that system. I hated that it was all laid out for me, and so often I found that it just wasn't working for me. So after watching Jill for a few months do her bullet journal in 2014, I decided I would give it a go at the beginning of 2015. And I'm really glad that I did. I didn't start with anything fancy. I started with a $5 notebook that I got at Target. It was a grid notebook. I just decided to jump in. I didn't look at any YouTube channels. I didn't go on Instagram because I didn't even realize that that was a thing. I watched Writer's video and I thought, okay, I can do that. And I started. Today when I came into my office, I took those journals out and I flipped through them and they were amazing to look at. It's amazing to look at where I started to where I am. And I realized that it's true of anything that we decide to do in life. If we decide to jump in and say, hey, I'm gonna do this, then first you suck. Then you get better because you learn from your mistakes. Being scared to start your bullet journal shouldn't be a thing because it only is you looking at it, unless you have a YouTube channel, which even then, who cares? It's for you. So today, with the spirit of comparison being the thief of joy, and in my case, I feel like when you compare yourself to the other stuff people are doing with their bullet journals, it takes away the happiness of bullet journaling. Happiness, joy, it takes that joy out of it. And as you guys know, Jill and I are really big about joy. Happiness, joy. We want happiness in whatever form we can find it. It doesn't matter what it is, it just brings you joy, but it didn't start like that. I had to figure out what worked for me. I had to figure out what didn't. The bullet journal really helps me keep all of my ducks in a row. So with that in mind, looking today at where I started to where I've been, I wanted to share my 2015 bullet journal with you. This is where I started bullet journaling. This was how I did things in the very beginning. And I want you to see that so you can see that it doesn't matter where you start, it just matters that you start. So these were my bullet journals for 2015, and this was the one that I started with. I got this at Target. I thought I would love that it was spiral bound because then I could, you know, do this with it. But I found that it just really ended up taking up a lot of space in my purse. And I actually think I messed one of these up at one point. So I didn't love this as much as I hoped I would. But let's see how I started my very first bullet journal. So I did do an index. I didn't do a very in-depth index, but this is what it looked like. This was, you know, what my very first index looked like. As you can see, I never got around to writing my goals for 2015. That laid empty. The first month I tried Writer's Way of doing the monthly view and knew right away that it wouldn't work for me. So I wrote a list of tasks for the month versus goals. And then my daily spread started out like this, where I wasn't color coding, I was just writing with whatever pen I had, and it was basically a brain dump of me just you know, getting everything out that I needed to get out. And I think I went the first half of the month like this. I wasn't in love with the system yet, but I was starting to get there. And so this is about the time where I was like, okay, I think that this is gonna make a lot more sense. And then toward the end of January was when I decided to start color coding. So then I started breaking things up into different colors for different parts of my life. So this was my first month of bullet journaling. So even from the beginning to the end of the month, you can see that I made a whole bunch of different changes. In February, I decided to start printing out a calendar instead of doing it writer's way, and this made a lot more sense to me in my brain. We were also training for a half marathon at that point, so I decided to put my monthly training schedule here, and then switched from monthly tasks to monthly goals. I also started keeping a budget in there, which was also super, super good. This was my first attempt at trying to doodle, and I think it's my last attempt until the end of last year. So yeah, and you can see like I really go back and forth. Like there are days that I didn't color code stuff, and then there are days that I did. So it's interesting to see just how kind of the changes went. I really started using it for, you know, meeting notes and that kind of stuff as well, that I didn't track as well as I wish I would have in my index. So anyway, this is, you know, so this is what it looked like those first few months. Oh, look, another attempt at a doodle because it was the 12-mile run. I actually remember sitting down on the ground at the end of that run and crying, like really genuinely crying, because I hated that run so much. Yeah, so this is what, you know, this is how things started. This is how things started for me. So I used this book through August of 2015. This is the longest a bullet journal has ever lasted me. Again, I got into color coding here a lot better, trying to keep up with that. You'll also notice this is when I started tracking personal stuff up top that I wanted to do every day. And interestingly, that has remained. This is still something I do every day, is track my water, vitamins, steps. This was when we went camping for the first time with both of our kids, and I made, you know, all of our lists here for holy crap, we're going camping. But there are some things that I started in this that, you know, remain. The way that I do my goals at the beginning of every month, the way that I do the budget. You know, this was when we ran the California International Marathon. So here was our training schedule for that. So in September, I moved to my first Moleskine, which I loved. This was a gridded Moleskine. This was my key. It was just my color code. I did not keep up with my index in this one at all, but you'll see that, you know, my goals page and my calendar page stayed the same, as did my budgeting. And then I went into this other really cool, you know, dailies. So I wasn't doing weeklies. I wasn't doing any of that kind of stuff yet, which I find super interesting that I wasn't doing any of that. So yeah, I just kept looking for stuff that worked for me. This was kind of where I really started meal planning and using my bullet journal as a way to meal plan, and it was just dinner. There wasn't any, you know, any other plans. Dinner in my shopping list. I think this is kind of where my, you know, where my washi tape obsession started, for sure. I decided I wanted to kind of make it prettier, and I tried to write more. And as this bullet journal progressed, I really tried to do a little bit more writing in here. I know, like, I wrote this for my daughter on her 9th birthday, and it was an Instagram post that I had written, and I really wanted her to know how I felt about her. And I thought Instagram might not be around when she's old enough to appreciate this, but this bullet journal will last forever. And writing a little bit too, like about Thanksgiving and that kind of stuff, because I'm so bad at taking pictures at holidays. I thought, well, if I write about it, maybe that will help a little bit. Again, this is where I started, you know, doing all of the followers that I had on social media to track that as well. December of that year was really, really rough for us. My mom was in the hospital from the day after Thanksgiving until the first week of December, and then our daughter went to the hospital with a burst appendix and was there for 10 days. So I did not sleep at home for a few weeks. This was her writing me notes when she couldn't speak because she had a tube down her throat. So, you know, this goes from December 5th was the last time I made a list in this to, you know, writing December 8th and December 9th. And then December 15th was the first time that I wrote a list again because of stuff that had happened at home. So yeah, this is just kind of, I also put our holiday card for that year in here. That way it's, you know, I have it. Tried to do a little bit more journaling, which is something I've not been so great at, but it's just been really good. And then I figured out what my goals would be for next year. We went and saw Star Wars and I kept those tickets, and then my words for the year. So those were the first 2 bullet journals I ever had, and they look nothing like the bullet journals I do now. So for that, I say I started somewhere. You should too.